Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. I welcome you all to the Hindu newspaper analysis for today. Also, I hope by now all of you already are a part of our Telegram channel. If you have still not joined the channel, you can use the link given in the description of the video to become a part of the Telegram channel and get all the latest current affairs updates about the UPSC examination. Now, let's begin with the very first article that is written on the topic of the National Food Security Act, also known as the NFSA. Now, as you know, under the National Food Security Act of 2013, the poor people in India are given ration from the side of the government, that is 5 kg per person per month at a very subsidized price. So they get rice at rupees 3 per kg, wheat at rupees 2 per kg and millets at rupees 1 per kg. Now, over and above that, what the government did was, since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, as you would know, government had doubled the allocation. So the National Food Security Act that said 5 kg per person per month will be given, that was doubled to 10 kg per person per month. This scheme in fact has been continuing till today. Now, while this is good and is appreciated by almost everyone across the country, the experts say that there is a problem that the government is not looking into. That is, a large part of India's population is still not covered under the National Food Security Act. Now, let's see how. The National Food Security Act says that it would give subsidized ration to 75% of the rural population and 50% of the urban population. Now, the problem is that these population numbers are based off the last census. So, last census that was conducted was in 2011. Since 2011, a lot has changed. Our population has increased considerably, but the government is still using the numbers from the last census only. As you know, because of the pandemic, this census of 2021 has been delayed considerably, but the government still does not really feel the need to actually change the inclusion list of the NFSA. The matter went to the Supreme Court also. Even the Supreme Court says that the coverage should increase and the government of India should come out with a formula for appropriate scheme to ensure the benefits of the scheme are not restricted as per the census of 2011. However, the government of India said that no, the act just says that we should go by the last census and we will go by that only. So, despite the Supreme Court's intervention, the government of India, for some reason, has not changed this. In fact, the government of India says with increasing per capita income of the country, lesser and lesser people would require such ration from the government. But what the government is missing out is, even though the per capita income may increase, that does not mean that the income of every individual is increasing. See, that is how the averages work. Even if the richest people in the country become even more rich, even then the average would increase. Just increasing per capita income doesn't really signify that everyone in the country is becoming more and more prosperous. That is why it is the government's responsibility to ensure that the National Food Security Act actually covers a lot more people. In fact, the easiest way for such schemes to work is they should cover everyone without any exclusion so that there is no chance of any corruption happening. Those who are well off will anyways not take advantage of this scheme. So it should cover everyone ideally. Now, the government has also, as I said, doubled the allowance under this NFSA scheme. It was 5 kg earlier, now it is 10 kg. So experts are saying you have already doubled the allowance anyway. So why not actually including more people in this? Now government is actually following a strange policy, not including more people under NFSA, and the people who are already included, they are just doubling their ration. This is what this article is all about. That the government, rather than focusing on doubling the ration or continuing it, they may go back to the 5 kg limit only, but they should ensure that more and more people are covered under this scheme, because we have a situation where the lower class has still not come out of the harmful impact of the pandemic. Thus, there is a need to have more people, because the census of 2021 would actually take a long time, because as per all the experts, even the preparation for that census has not begun. Now, the government of India's logic, as I said, is since the per capita income is increasing, the vulnerable population is decreasing, but that does not hold true. Now, the central government has also blamed the state governments in this regard. The central government has said it is the state government's responsibility to identify which are the people who should be covered under the scheme. If the respective state governments think that they do have a large number of vulnerable population, then they should give a list and include those. It is not our responsibility. Some states, in fact, have done that. There are examples of two specific states in this article, Odisha and Chhattisgarh, that have gone beyond the central government limit and they have actually adjusted more population under the NFSA. The Supreme Court is saying that more people should be included under this act. At least 90 crore people should be included as compared to 80 crore which are included right now. So doubling the ration limit may be a decision that should be taken back. In place of that, we should include more people. That is the idea. And since the government doesn't seem to be interested in this, the author here says that the Supreme Court should intervene in this regard. Now, interestingly, the government also gives a lot of importance to this law, the National Food Security Act. That is why recently the National Food Security Act 2022 index was also released for the first time ever. In this index, there was actually a ranking given of the different states of how they have implemented the law. This is the first ever edition, and in this ranking, without a surprise, Odisha actually ranked at the first place. This index actually tells about the status and the progress of implementation of this law and highlights the reforms taken by different states and union territories about distribution of the food grains through the public distribution systems. This index takes into consideration the coverage of the NFSA, targeted population, delivery platforms, and also different nutrition initiatives taken by different states across the entire country. The government of India has also been focusing on resolving the problem of ration cards. So if you have to take ration under this scheme, usually you have to present your ration card at the PDS shops. But the problem is the migrant laborers, when they shift from one state to the other state, they don't have a ration card for the state where they are working. That is why many states don't offer ration to those people. For example, if there's a worker from UP and he or she is working in Maharashtra, when they show their ration card, the Maharashtra government might say, we won't give you free ration because your ration card is of UP. That is also something the government of India has been trying to resolve under the One Nation, One Ration Card scheme, under which now, if you have the NFSA card, you would be able to avail ration across 24 states and not only in the state for which you have the ration card. The next article that we have here is an interesting take on the G20. The author here, who is a former Indian ambassador and the governor of India for International Atomic Energy Agency, he says that because a UNSC has not been able to work properly, because of the veto powers misused by the permanent members, maybe it is time to see G20 as a perfect alternative. And with India being the president of G20 in the coming year, this actually presents a great opportunity for India. The author here says that in the Indonesia G20 summit that just concluded, all the talks and attention were on the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Across the world, there is no other country that is better positioned as compared to India to actually resolve this crisis, because India is trusted from both the sides. Even though the Western nations don't want anyone to have any economic relations with Russia, even then India is continuously buying oil from Russia, and we are able to argue with the Western nations about why we are doing this. That is what places India in a very unique position. And maybe this 2023 summit hosted by India is a great opportunity to present G20 as an alternative to the UNSC, which by all the parameters has failed to achieve its potential. As you know, the UNSC was supposed to be a body that ensures world peace, that ensures that any conflict around the world is resolved peacefully, but they had not been able to do so mainly because of the veto power being misused. The UNSC is paralyzed because on each and every issue, one of the permanent members, be it US, be it Russia, be it China, uses their veto power. And that is why we have to look at alternatives, and G20 is the best possible alternative for various reasons. First, the G20 doesn't have any veto problem. Second, it has much more representation. All the permanent members of UNSC are members of G20. Then we have representation from Africa, Latin America as well, and consensus decision of G20 thus should be taken much more seriously as compared to what they are. If G20 is successful in ensuring peace between Russia and Ukraine, it will actually gain a lot of legitimacy, and in the future we may say that UNSC should be replaced by G20. In this aspect, India also has to take a very, very important step. India also has to ensure that these kind of things are discussed in the Sherpa meetings. We discuss what are Sherpas. Sherpas are basically representatives who are appointed by different governments who attend meetings prior to the G20 summit so that they can discuss what agenda will be in the main meeting. These Sherpas can actually discuss these issues about giving a greater role to the G20 in the world affairs. The great part with G20 being is that since India is the president of G20 this year, both the sides would actually trust India to be an honest broker. Russia also trusts India, and the Western countries also have a good image of India in their mind. So, if there is any year where G20 has to play a greater role in the world affairs, if there is any chance for G20 to replace the UNSC, this is that year because right now India is the president of the G20. The other interesting part is India actually has historically done this multiple times. For example, if you look at several landmark resolutions of UNSC, they have been authored by India or India has played a major role in there. For example, when there was a resolution on question of Palestine, India was the one that actually was the author of that resolution. Not just this, the non-aligned movement at the Havana summit and also the issue between Arabs and the Egypts, all of these were resolved where India played a major role in that. So India does have a good experience of playing the mediator in all these international issues, and maybe this is time that India expands that possibility in the upcoming G20. Now, this is just an example where I wanted to show you how exactly are the vetoes being used in the last few years. In the last decades or so, there is hardly any resolution in the UNSC that has been passed with all the permanent members accepting it. One or the other permanent member keeps on using their veto powers. And it is actually very, very unfortunate. Whenever there would be a resolution against Russia, Russia will obviously use their veto powers. China does the same for themselves and their friends. USA also is not very far away. Yes, recently it is Russia that has been using their veto more and more. But if you go back a few years, USA also has been very, very frequent while using its veto powers for a lot of different resolutions whenever they don't like something. As you know, the UNSC can be expanded, and the G4 members, that is India, Japan, Germany, and Brazil, are demanding just that. Now, in order to change the UNSC, you would have to amend the UN Charter specifically. That means that you need consent of two-thirds of the total membership of the UN and all the P5 members to say yes. This is where it gets interesting because amongst the P5 there is China also. The other members of the P5 except China seem to support India, but they have a different point of view about India's powers. For example, US says that okay, we'll allow India to become a permanent member, but without the veto powers. So they don't really want to give complete powers to India or any of the new members who would actually come in. The Charter of the UN was amended only once when non-permanent members were included in the UNSC. As you know, there are 10 non-permanent members who don't have any veto powers. They serve a 2-year term each in the UNSC. The next article that we have here is with respect to the parliament session that is ongoing. The central government has introduced a bill that was long awaited, that is to modify the scheduled tribe list in 4 states. Now this is not a new news because Government of India has been saying that they will be doing this for a long time. The bill seeks to modify scheduled tribe list in 4 states, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Himachal Pradesh and Chhattisgarh, and include certain new tribes in this. Apart from this, in Chhattisgarh specifically, rather than including a new tribe, they have included certain other names for the same tribe, that is the Bharia Bhumia tribe. The government is saying that the same tribe is known by different names in Chhattisgarh, pronounced differently. So they want to have all of them under the list so that all of them are included in the scheduled tribe list and get all the benefits. So the main point for us, rather than remembering which tribe got included here, which tribe got excluded here, the major point of discussion is what is the process for inclusion or exclusion of a certain tribe from the scheduled tribe list. Now, the process for inclusion or exclusion actually begins at the level of the state or the union territory. They are the ones who actually give recommendations. Then the president's office is the one that has the final call under Article 341 and 342. Now, for inclusion and exclusion of any community in this list, the Parliament has to amend the President Order, and this Order of 1950 is amended through a bill of the Parliament, the same bill that has been introduced now. This bill will again go to the President to have her assent, and that is how the bill would actually amend the scheduled tribe or the scheduled caste list. Now, to establish whether a certain community should be a part of the scheduled tribe, the government looks at several criteria, including their ethnological traits, the traditional characteristics, do they have a distinctive culture, are they geographically isolated, backward, etc. Supreme Court in the past has said that they wanted certain numbers, they wanted certain data whenever such inclusion is made in the list, but governments have not really depended on certain data specifically. They're more dependent on these reports in the view of the government because that also serves them whenever they want to actually show that they are close to a certain caste of people, certain group of people. They want this power in their hand to include them in this list so that they can get reservation benefits and benefits from other government schemes as well. The next article that we have is from ISRO. There are a couple of new developments that have happened at ISRO which are very significant for us. First, hot test of the scramjet engine was conducted successfully for over 11 seconds. And second, ISRO has also unveiled a new trisonic wind tunnel that will help ISRO in conducting more experiments before they actually launch their missions. Now, let's look at these two news separately first. The scramjet engine, as you know, is a technology that is used by ISRO and they have been continuously trying to make it better. They have conducted an 11 seconds long test of the scramjet engine. That is, the engine actually worked for 11 seconds, which is a long time. It can operate efficiently at hypersonic speeds as well and allow supersonic combustion by breathing oxygen from the atmosphere during the flight. Now, understand this. Whenever any jet is sent out of the atmosphere, they need certain fuel. Now, apart from the fuel, they also need an oxidizer. For example, just because your bottle has petrol doesn't mean that the petrol will burn automatically. For the petrol to burn, you need certain oxidizer. You need something to actually ignite the fuel. Now, what happens is when ISRO or any of these space agencies actually send their spacecraft, they have to load it with fuel and also the oxidizer. Now, the weight of the oxidizer is also very heavy, because of which they are not able to send a lot of other equipments which they wanted to. So now they have been trying to make a new technology under which they are saying that we'll only send fuel in the spacecraft. Oxygen will be taken from the atmosphere itself. Now, this is the scramjet technology, where you take oxygen from the atmosphere for igniting the fuel rather than taking oxygen with the spacecraft from the earth itself, because that will only increase the load of the spacecraft and they would not be able to add on many more equipments. This is a technology that we have been trying to work on along with many other nations, and we have been successful in this gradually. This is what the scramjet technology is. The second experiment is about the wind tunnel that has been unveiled by ISRO. It will allow ISRO to conduct speed tests before actually launching the real missions. It's a trisonic wind tunnel, means it can actually conduct tests in 3 different speed ranges. It is about 160 meters long, and it will actually try to create an atmosphere that will be very similar to the one that will be faced by the spacecraft in the space itself. So that will be very helpful before actually sending the real mission to test it on ground whether or not the conditions are going to be successful or not. Now, these are the different types of jet engines: the turbojet, the turbofan, the ramjet and the scramjet. Both ramjet and scramjet are those technologies where, as I said, oxygen is not taken from the earth itself. The oxygen will be taken in from the atmosphere and it will be used to actually ignite the fuel. Now, the difference between ramjet and scramjet mainly is, while ramjet cannot work at very high speeds, scramjet is even an advanced version. It can work at very high speeds and it can actually work in the range of Mach 24 as well, which is extremely high speeds. Because for a spacecraft to actually go to far off places, it requires to work at very high speed. That is why ISRO and other space agencies around the world are still trying to master the scramjet technology, which we have been able to do multiple times now. So it is a very good sign for the times to come, because ISRO, as you know, has been working on multiple missions including Gaganyaan, Aditya, etc. The next article that we have here is that a member of parliament who is not a member, that's a private member from the BJP, has introduced a bill on uniform civil code in the Rajya Sabha. Now, it is not very usual for the private member bills to be introduced. As you know, private member bill is a bill that is introduced by non-ministers. Usually, you would expect that if a bill is coming from the side of the ruling party, it will be introduced by a minister only. But this time around, it has been introduced by a non-minister. The bill seeks to have a National Inspection and Investigation Committee that will prepare the Uniform Civil Code and will implement it throughout the country. As expected, the opposition parties did not like it. They said that this is not the right time to have such a debate. Uniform Civil Code is a big matter and it needs to be debated widely before any bill is introduced. This was the view of most of the opposition parties. Now, if you look at the history of private member bills, it is not that no private member bill has passed in India, but it is very rare. So rare that the last time a private member bill was passed was in 1970. So it has been over 5 decades now. So far, only 14 private member bills have been passed. 5 of these were introduced in the Rajya Sabha. Some of these include the proceedings of legislature in the Lok Sabha, salary allowances of members of parliament, the IPC amendment bill, etc. But as I said, it is very rare for a private member bill to actually pass. Now, coming to the debate of the Uniform Civil Code, it's not a new debate, it's a debate that we have had for many years since our independence. The simple idea is there are two types of laws, criminal and civil. Criminal laws are same for everyone irrespective of their religion. So if a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, whoever is a person who commits a crime, the same kind of punishment will be given to them. But then the personal laws, that is laws about marriage, divorce, inheritance of property, they are different depending upon your religion. The idea of Uniform Civil Code is that even those kind of laws should be the same. However, that has not been done so far because of opposition from different sections of the society. The debate of Uniform Civil Code goes way back, almost 2 centuries. It was in 1835 that the British government first had this idea of having a uniform civil code in the country when they were ruling over India. However, because of opposition from religious sectors in Hindus and Muslims, both of them, that is why this idea was dropped. Then in our Constituent Assembly also this idea was widely debated. After India got independent, the government of India did try to make some changes in Hindu personal law specifically. That is why in 1956 Hindu Succession Act was introduced. However, different personal laws for the religions were not touched upon by the government back then. This is a demand that has been made even today. Now, it is not right to say that nothing has changed. The government over the years has been making certain changes in religious laws and religious practices of different religions, be it abolition of triple talaq, etc. So it's not to say that without the Uniform Civil Code nothing has changed. There have been changes that have already been made by the government. Also, it is wrong to say that Uniform Civil Code doesn't exist in India. The Uniform Civil Code, that is, civil laws are same for most of the people in many cases. For example, the Civil Procedure Act, Transfer of Property, Partnership Act, etc. It's only when it comes to personal matters such as marriage, divorce, inheritance of property, this is where the laws are separate based on the religion. As of now, only Goa is the one state in India that follows a uniform civil code because they were ruled by the Portuguese and Portuguese were the ones that had introduced this law and they have continued that tradition even today, while the other states have not done so till now. In fact, the Supreme Court also has asked the central government to take inspiration from the Goa model and think about introducing this kind of law across the entire country. These are the important articles on the Hindu newspaper today. Now, a couple of practice questions. Number one. Without any veto powers available, the G20 has the potential to replace the United Nations Security Council. Comment. Second, the National Food Security Act of 2013 needs to be more flexible when it comes to inclusion of beneficiaries. Do you agree? Elaborate. Both these questions have to be answered within 250 words each. Thank you so much for watching the video. Have a good day ahead.